Well, hello everyone. You have right here, like talk about for what we know from what we don't know, and basically that this this activity right here basically shows right here is like it may look kind of funny looking, but then on your hand that when we take a picture of something, if it was years ago that we're like warned or hey that what exactly were you doing, what were you thinking during that time, and I know that some of these pictures right here that I'm sure we had not seen yet, and this right here will be a picture right here that one of the pictures that that was taken that whenever it's like your family and friends, when we were out of town, and it looks like that I was dressed up to maybe to play like an outdoor activity such as maybe softball or something, but I think get looking at a dog or I think visiting with somebody, and then this for anybody that may warrant to where any picture that is taken, and you're like warrant to where this right here could be an example right here of a class photo, and then this picture right here could be an example of what I would look like maybe during a field trip or something like that, or maybe visiting. So thinking about is to where whenever we look at some of these the Photoshop work, and if this was a class assignment related, then sometimes anybody that may warrant to where that did you want to explain to yourself what is it that we see this we see this work right here is to where that for the things that more likely that other people that could be concerned about, and whenever they look at something like this right here, they may warrant to where okay, they're looking at it and then they're like warrant where okay, what's this all about right here? That we see a few things missing or some sort. So you're like warrant to where that that sometimes that whenever you do speak up about something or write something, and then maybe somebody else that may expect something, but let's just say the situation where to go by is to where that how do we answer to where that somebody asks a question and then you say, well, I don't know. You don't know. Well, what do you know? So that kind of applies to where that, any questions and concerns that more likely anybody that may think about, and then you're like warrant to where that really that there is what you call a response, such as I don't know, but then on your hand that you're like warrant to well, maybe you do know something, but maybe you're just hiding it or something like that. But on your hand that anybody that may warrant to where that a lot of if we want to call it pieces of the puzzle to where you're trying to collect some information, you're trying to collect ideas and then the information related to something such as that Matthew was not doing his homework, or Matthew did not show up for his doctor's appointment like he was supposed to or something like that, and then they start asking questions. So you're like warrant to where that any questions that more likely that people want to get responses for. And I know that back when I was young, that I may have had those numbers of reasons to why that didn't do the work, or maybe if it was about question to where somebody asked me and I tell them, well, I don't know. So you're like one to where just like what you call it the conversation. Yeah, it's like whenever say so many people say yeah oh okay yeah I know yeah yeah, but on the other hand, this right here will be like talking about right here is like from what we know, from what we don't know, and I am sure that that we can more likely use that response such as I don't know, don't know, but then if we use it too many times, then it's possible that people are gonna likely say, start talking. So you're like warned to where whenever people say is to where if it's gonna be like maybe an urgent matter or important situation, and we wanted to where that that especially on the weekend to where somebody leaves a note for somebody, hey, I'll be at a friend's house, or hey, I went to the store or something, and you're like warned to where well, what are you going to be getting at the store? I don't know, something. But on the other hand, it any kind of answers that more likely that we give to somebody, and at the time you're like warned to where if I were to be this was right here was me right here, and then if I were to be like what you call writing a note and anybody that may warrant to where like what kind of note are you talking about, like well the kind of note to where that yeah, I kind of I kind of note such as be right back or something like that. So and I know I'm like that I can maybe about write it at about right here. I'm like that I can go ahead and change a little bit of the color right here, but anyway, be right back. Now, I don't know if anybody, all of us can see this right here, like a be right back. So whenever we're thinking about this right here, and we may leave a note, kind of like this right here. And I'm like, that, oh, if I like it's, I don't know if anybody really can really see that. But anyway, but there may be a number of stories of situations to where something that went on that, to where that like you'll be right back or something like that. We want to leave a response like you'll be right back, or maybe in there. But on your hand, I talk about right here for like question marks. I included about 6 of them right here. So thinking about it to where that whenever we are asked a question and then where our response is usually like, well, I don't know. Well, like what are you asking me for? But on your hand, that you're like learn to where even doctors and nurses and maybe other other person, if they're calling you for some specific information, and if you tell them, I don't know, then more likely, then there's a chance they are like, well, then what do you know? Well, you ought to get out of the habit of saying I don't know, or if it's anybody that may want to where, well, I'm thinking, or I'm a thinking, or yeah, okay, yeah, whatever. But on the other hand, that really about the question more likely goes is to where that for any source of information that more likely that we may think, if we speak up about it, and I know some kids that may say is to where that I'm afraid that you may get mad at me if I speak up about it. Well, right now it's kept between this person, or it's kept confidential as of right now, or that somebody asks about it and then you may not want to tell them right away. So you have right here is a picture right here. This right here would be example of me right here, and anybody that more likely be warned to where that what exactly are you doing and thinking, and what exactly what were you actually necessarily doing and interacting whenever you were in this picture right here. So I could have maybe been playing hard in the sport, or maybe gotten upset about something, or maybe been crying and or anything like that. But let's just say on average to where that for any type of answers that more likely that we give and how we respond to, such as to where that, oh, I don't know, well, I don't know why you're asking me. And so whenever we use that word, it's like for I don't know, that sometimes some people that may use it as a phrase as to where that you don't know what else to say other than it, that okay, this is something else I want to go ahead and mention as well. So the conversation where to go is to where that like be right back. Well, you've been gone for about 5 or 10 minutes, or something like, well, what else came up? So thinking about is to where, like I mentioned before, that there are some questions that more likely they say that well, you don't need the answer to that, but and I know that I also mentioned before as to where that about the long story. So I'm sure that we all have stories that which we call real long stories, but sometimes there are some which you call some stories and traumatic ordeals and other stories too, to where so at some point that even though if they happened a long time ago, that if it's a true story or not, that sometimes people basically say is to where that I didn't think that anybody really cared to even hear it. So if we ever heard that story before, is to where that that we used to always think that maybe there was a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow or something like that. So whenever you were about maybe 7 or 8, that you were to walk up to a rainbow and maybe look for a pot of gold, or maybe if it was anything that related to that you wanted to do something special for somebody, so you went out and got them something, but then you're like warned to where, well, that where'd you get the income to do that? And then and then nobody told you to do that. Well, why'd you do that for? So there may be a number of reasons to why we do stuff. one of those would be like, yeah, that you didn't get treated for an ice cream. Well, you didn't do very well on the test. So I know that whenever people are asked questioning about something, especially for like an interview or something like that, job interviews, to where that if you use that word, I don't know, and then that some more likely is to where that they may say, well, what do you know? There may be some information about that subject matter to where that you may think that it's personal and confidential, but then on your hand, that basically about my story is to where that no one to discover about artwork though is that since with me having a disability and like anybody that may warrant to where that the type of disability that the more likely that you have, and then some things that you may have been aware of too, and I could tell anybody here that you know stuff that I did when I was young that really that even though if they happened years ago, somebody they may ask, what was that all about? Well, that anything that's related to medical records or anything like that. So we're like Warren to where how do we answer to that concern as to where that somebody asks you a question and you say I don't know. It's not really what you call yes, no, maybe, or I'll get back to you about that, or not actionable. So you're like Warren to where that any source of application, especially any source of application, if they ask you if you're employed, do you have insurance? And then you're like, I don't know, I think so. I could, well, I don't know compared to I think so or I don't know. I guess I think so is maybe a better answer, ain't it? Because some people that may use what you call I think so. I think so compared to I don't know. But I guess if you're about to be about 100% sure about it, and look it up on record, like anybody that might wanted to, where if this was right here was me, and I don't know if I was going to maybe be using this right here as maybe my screensaver for my phone, but let's just say on average to where these pictures right here were taken years ago, right? This one right here, I'm sure was taken back in the early of I think 1987, maybe 1988, something like that. And then this one right here would have been taken right around 1992, something like that. So think about these pictures right here, and you're like Warren to where this right here could have been maybe a school or maybe a class photo right here, and then this one right here could have been me right here, as to where if I was frustrated or trying to pick up something or talking, doing something, and people may wonder to where just by looking at these two pictures right here. What is these pictures right here? And why are they related to the class project? Why are they related to the presentation? And on your hand too, you're smiling, but then that's just a thing about right here as to where how come this picture right here looks totally different from this picture. So let's just say that this was right here was a picture of me. And I know I have other pictures too. I probably showed you other pictures too of whenever I was in kindergarten from the 4th and 5th grade. But let's just say that if this picture right here was me, maybe in like the spelling contest, any type of contest over there at the school to where they ask you a question, and if you respond to the right answer, then they give out prizes, stuff like that, or maybe if it's maybe the band or the choir. So anybody that may want to where that you were in you were in band in the 4th grade, wasn't you? But on your hand, that really, I'm like, can we respond really necessarily if we had a musical instrument? Can we really respond to a question using a musical instrument? One of those could be like, but other than that, like I talk about right here, and like for any responses to any answers, and if it's going to be maybe the flute or the clarinet, or if it's the piano, and we're like Warren to where that for what we know and then for what we don't know. And then you're like Warren to where whenever people really need to know the information and they really need somebody really to talk and give them answers or anything like that, more likely they may say, well, start talking. But and then the way they may say is to where, start talking, Matthew. So you're like Warren to where, and I'm sure that any for any situation that comes up to where I'm sure that they may say is to where even though if the situation has nothing to do with you or that particular person, that you're like warrant to where that really somebody needs to speak up, and you're like warrant to where the right or wrong ways of how to do it. So you're like warrant to where that whenever we say I don't know, all we basically mean is to where that you start talking about something and you're like, well, I don't know, I guess some people basically say, well, don't take my word for it, don't take my opinion. You can go ahead and learn by your experience. So you can go ahead and take the experience. And I know that we may see it on maybe those commercials or so that somebody starts talking about something, starts talking about a story, some things that they do know, but then on the other hand, too, after about maybe 5 minutes, they may say, well, I don't know, but it's like, yeah, sometimes even the professionals, that they start talking to you about something, and then they may include the word at the end, such as, well, I don't know, but on your hand, that this is something really to think about. But, this is something, but they may start, I guess sometimes people use that word or phrase like I don't know, such as to where that that's really the best what they can say, and then they just try to be honest. And I know sometimes I guess people use that word or phrase as just be honest, just be honest people, as to where that for the way that they respond to is to where that hey, this is not false. This is true. For best of my opinion. But on your hand, that for any information that more likely it's asked for. But the way I think about it, for anybody that more likely that wants to give feedback, and you're like Warren to where at the answer is I don't know, but then sometimes they may say, well, the answer can be I don't know, or you think so, or not sure. But the way I think about it, though, is like for our responses, though. If there is a good response within the amount of time and in the amount of information that's talked about, and I know with anybody that may think as to where that, hey, that even though if you may have gotten a different answer from told the opposite from what I told you, whichever, so you're like Warren to where there are some questions that more likely that could be asked for, but half the time you're like Warren to where even though if the situation happened years ago, people that may warrant to where, yeah, well, how come we weren't told before? Like, I didn't think you cared. And sometimes that's usually how I say it, to where, if you were that curious, huh? If you really care, because I usually speak up about something, but then it seems like people are just too busy really to hear about it. And that's usually the way I think about it too, is to where that sometimes anybody that may warrant to where that anything about information, of some sort, they may give you that question such as, yeah, well, we don't need to know that information at this time, or, well, we already know that information. Well, thanks for keeping us updated, but we've already got that information. So at the time, it seems like that, it's not really what you call any changes or some sort. You're like Warren to where, yeah, well, nobody has time to listen to you. So it seems like that's sometimes what people are saying. But on the other hand, that I just really think, though, it's important to speak up as much as we can as well. But there you have it. Talk about you for what we know and from what we don't know. And I'm sure that anybody likely warrant to where that you might see the important reason is to where that if you don't speak up about something, then chances are that that we warrant to where that the chances are that somebody will be able to perform their job a little bit more, and for any information they do need to collect, because just knowing about the whole important reason about being trustworthy, and you're like warrant to where for any information that is collected, and there was a point in time to where that maybe if it was the parents who would speak up about something, and especially with me though, and I know that for me that for like if I can remember, yeah, even from whenever I was in the Boy Scouts, I can remember that even though the situation happened years ago, it just seems like people are going to ask about that, and then they're going to blame you for what you call not speaking up about it, such as, well, you told me those years ago that you didn't know, but then now you're telling me that it was because that they weren't treating you right. Now you're telling me that they could not read your writing, or that because that your grade point average wasn't of an 8% or higher or so. So you're like Warren to where that the questions that more likely that remain is to where that you're like Warren, when is the right or wrong time to speak up about a concern in the matter? And so that's why that people say, yep, people get busy almost all the time. But the question goes by as to where that when do you think you want to talk about them, huh? Yeah, well, go ahead and just, get a journal. I'm like, if you want to write in the journal about your feelings, about how you feel about the situation, I'm sure that maybe sooner or later somebody's going to maybe be curious about it, hours later or days later or maybe years later, and then they're going to like, Warren, to where how come you didn't speak up about it? So just thinking about it, to where that I usually say is to where don't judge something before you know it, but then on your hand that for how do we respond to words like for I don't know, such as to where that an answer such as well when are you going to be what time are you going to be here for the appointment or something like that. Well, I don't know. Like, well, when do you think you're going to be signed back in to check on review the updates? I don't know. So you're like Warren to where okay, well, then I guess you really don't even have, the whole situation the matter really planned yet, huh? You don't really have a schedule. You don't have anything in the appointments real scheduled or anything like that. So really, that may look pretty bad on anybody else's attendance to where it makes it look bad on them, such as to where, yeah, well, it's your fault for not telling us about this information. But on the other hand, at the same time, to where it's something to where it's like, teach ourselves a lesson is knowing about something that's concern of the matter is really about how to speak up about something. And we can maybe say, I don't know, but then think of a way, just to try to get them to understand a little bit better about the situation. But anyway, but talk about there is like for what we do know and from what we don't know is knowing about is, to ask, and it's like knowing about for how it's, well, the communication is handled. But they are Manny Make 25, and thanks for watching. And also, it's like Manny Make 25 here, and want to mention right here is like that the type of look that we have on our face that whenever we're like if there's any situation to where if we will be getting in trouble by anything. And I'm sure anybody that more likely wants to where that the question could go by is to where that hey that why do you and ask questions whenever you already know that more likely you don't need the information anyway. So there may be a number of ways of how to respond towards that, such as after you work on something, after you pay a bill, or after you turn in an assignment or some sort, that you're like Warren to where they ask a question and then you tell them that, well, I don't think you really need to see this because it's not really anything that's related to what we're talking about, and then they ask to see it anyway, and then by the time you show them, and then they start telling you that, well, that this according to what we're mentioning about, so it seems like that they want to kind of rephrase that in their own words. And sometimes it seems like to where that sometimes when people ask to see something and then you already tell them that you more likely don't need to see that anyway. Like maybe you like your doctor. I'm like, if you had insurance or maybe test results that were taken at our lab or something like that, it may not be related to something that they're talking about. And, they ask to see the information anyway, and then they tell you that, well, we don't need to see it. I'm like, well, why did you tell me that you needed to see it whenever I already told you that you probably didn't need to see it? But I guess that goes by the question to where that really about anything you want to maybe tell the doctor or maybe whoever that you're talking talking with. But on the other hand, job interview or something like that. But for how to respond as to where from what we know and what we don't know, and you're like Warren to where you're. And I used to always think all the time to where that nowadays it seems like to where you gotta think twice before you actually do something, because if you actually do this and then you're afraid that you're gonna get in trouble for it, you may lose points, you may lose some money, or something comes up to where that that sometimes it takes me until maybe the last minute sometimes, and sometimes it takes me about 30 seconds. And whenever I'm getting ready to do something, it seems like I pause for about 30 seconds just because I'm afraid to where that if I do this, and then more likely that the chances are that, oh, it was a mistake, well, you should not have done that. So it seems like to where the way our brain works, and I'm thinking though that anybody that's usually the way your brain works is that if you got a lot going on during the day, that more likely the chances are that you are going to lose concentration and you start remembering things right at the last minute. So let's just say that you're getting ready to put something in the mail. It could be something that's related to maybe please assign a date in the application or some sort, and you're getting ready to sign it and date or whichever, and I know that my handwriting from back in this time would have, I don't think it would look like this. I'm like, it would, maybe it would have been written in a crayon of some sort. I guess you could say it would have been kind of like written like this, but I don't have very many examples I know of around, but, if I did, that I guess anybody would probably say that, thinking about it as to where, yeah, besides that this is then or that this is now, or, if it's anything about between the past and then it's like for the future, but on your hand, that speaking is with the writing and as well as for communication though, and I am sure that really that between our brain and the way that the way we function though is that we're like Warren to where does your brain have a mind of its own? So whenever you're getting ready to do something and then all of a sudden something comes up to where you have a thought to where, wait a minute, is this the right one? Or wait a minute, hey, this is something I got to think about. Well, wait a minute, I'm afraid if I do this. So there's a lot of questions that's going on, I guess, in the mind that maybe people are not aware of. Right here would be right here is like, do I want to get in the picture, or that if it's anything that's related to maybe a contest or something like that, do you want to sign up, maybe for the contest or draw a prize or something like that. So you're like Warren to where questions that more likely to be asked. And it may not be promised all the time you get answers, but I know anybody that may weren't were something that happened a long time ago, and then now they want to pick the time you really to ask about it. It's like, yeah, it happened like 22 years ago, and I don't even know why this person's asking, because it's like, yeah, that was a long time ago. So really, I guess the question matters to where how do we handle situations like that to where people want to ask about that, and maybe about yeah, that we met a long time ago or some sort. But on the other hand, that I guess this right here would be like, say, some ideas about as to where that, yeah, Matthew played some sports whenever he was in school, and then he was in band class for a little bit, but then he was in the band, I think in the fourth or fifth grade, he was played the band, he was in a little bit, he played a musical instrument, but not the trombone. If I can remember right, it was the clarinet or so. But I know that for any information that more likely than anybody that does collect is that think about is you'll answer the questions as best of your knowledge, best as you can. So just thinking about as to where that if anybody were to ask as to where that why do we think that more likely is to where that anything that more likely that may be incorrect or false, and you're like Warren to where that any type of warning signs you're thinking about as to where that really any type of punishments, and you're like Warren to where that there's a lot of things I'm sure that we do see whenever we're honest compared to whenever we provide false information, such as to where that we kind of get in the habit to where, will you change that answer right now if you think it's incorrect? But if you can change it. But on the other hand, that for knowing about the trustworthy, and I'm thinking though that for how people know you very well, and then for how you respond to, and then knowing about the eye contact especially. So there may be a number of reasons to why that we may think necessarily to where that somebody that may say that, yeah, well, that between lie detector test or any other types of testings that they want to where any questions that more likely that you give them, and you're like Warren to where the answers that you give them that may not be necessarily exactly what they're looking for, and then maybe for what maybe that matches on their records. But let's just say on average to where that for any answers that I may provide, that more likely that they may say, well, hey, that you speak up, and then you answer the best questions best you can, and then more likely they may still need proof of evidence, about something, anything that they need to collect too. But then on your hand too, it kind of puts you on, into that spot, to where that hey, that well, if you continue being honest, I am sure that you'll be trusted, and you will be trusted, as well as for anybody else that needs collecting any source of information. But you may hear that almost all the time. But on your hand too is like for what we know and from what we don't know. And I am sure that anything that I may talk about, I keep warned to where that really that for anybody that, if they're going to be that curious or not, to knowing about the person speaking, and you're like warned to where that those years ago that, yeah, that Matthew, he didn't speak up as much. What's one thing that more likely that he kind of got in the habit of doing that? One of those could be as to where that, yeah, he wanted to feel a part of the group. You're part of the team. So I guess that's usually what I say. But anyway, but there you have it. It's obviously for what we know and for what we don't know. And I'm sure anybody likely wonders to where those school days is to where how do I handle it to where that if we were to get in trouble for anything and you're like Warren to where that you had that look on your face and you're like Warren to where, yeah, please come to the principal's office. Or if it's yeah, that they call you to the office or the principal's office, and I'm sure there's other stories that go on too, but as well. But anyway, but there you have it. I talk about for what we know and for what we do know. It's like to be honest, but you can. But other than that, Meta 25. Thanks for